Alright everyone, there is an obviously archived link in the description to the very funny CNN article that they did regarding Melania Trump. Now, Melania Trump actually got extremely good reviews, apparently. Even CNN's admitting this. When she went to Saudi Arabia, regardless of whether she wore a headscarf or not, she looked pretty prim and proper, almost looked a little bit like a military wife or something. Pretty stylish, honestly. Looked like she was about to blow somebody's head off. And then for the Vatican, of course, in Saudi Arabia, she had not worn a headscarf. When she went to the Vatican, she did wear, the typical dress code veil for women when appearing before the Pope. CNN is wondering why this is. Well, why would you do this and not that? Well, there are two reasons why. The first is actually pointed out officially by the White House, which is the Saudi Arabians made no expectation that she was going to wear a headscarf when appearing in Saudi Arabia. It's not required, this foreign head of state. Doesn't have to wear a head-to-toe burqa in order to visit Saudi Arabia. It's the wife of the most important political ally that the Saudi Arabians claim to have. They're not going to push it too far, especially, I think, with somebody like Donald Trump or his wife. That being said, at the Vatican, of course, there is a sort of dress code that was requested. I don't think it's really enforced. Like, if Melania Trump shows up, she doesn't have a veil on. What the fuck's the Pope gonna say? What's the Pope's representative gonna say? They're gonna turn him away, say, no, Donald, you can't visit today because your wife isn't wearing a veil? Or something. That would be, it'd be terrible if they were to try to do that, because he'd ream him on Twitter, and very quickly they'd have a little bit of turmoil there. And as we've already seen, Trump is more powerful than the Pope, which is probably a good thing because he's more sane than the Pope and probably more honest. But there's another reason here. There's another layer overlapping onto it that I think we should probably discuss. That is, yes, it is Catholic custom in certain situations that women wear a simple head covering. It's not exactly a burqa, but they wear that. Nuns, of course, they wear a habit. But when's the last time that Catholics attempted to enforce this dress code off on people who were not Catholics? Yeah, a few hundred years ago. I think you have to go back before the Victorian era to find such a situation. When's the last time that Islamic zealots attempted to enforce a dress code, whether onto Islamists that disagreed with them or onto non-Muslims? Every day for the last few years, in fact, for continuously since Islam basically existed within the region. Now, there are Muslim cultures that don't really do the headscarf thing. Some of them, they're like, yeah, we're Muslims, we don't have a headscarf. Others, they have a more simplistic one, something on the order of what Melania was wearing, and then in other places you have a full burqa. You go to Afghanistan, which is the most Puritan style Islamic culture that there is. They go even beyond the full-length burqa, and they have literally like a face and eye covering so that even that is masked. Now, on the one hand, it sort of does make sense to wear the sort of the head-to-toe covering anyway if you're in the middle of a scorching desert. You'll find that men there, they wear like full-length robes too, although they don't cover their face or their hair, generally speaking. They wear a turban or something, a head wrap. But the attempt to enforce that dress code on people that do not agree with it is definitely present. The Vatican does not instruct non-Catholics on a regular basis, yes, you should wear a veil, here's why. They just take it as a token of their religious movement, their religious zeal, so to speak. So Melania, out of respect for this individual who is not being abusive towards people, decided to veil up and just say, okay, I'll go with the dress code that they have here. It's sort of like if the Pope is going to visit Washington, D.C., there are some things that the Pope isn't going to be allowed to do, like having a bevy of altar boys surrounding him to give him favors or something, like he can in the Vatican, and probably does. It is the Catholic Church after all. There are certain expectations. When you go on a foreign visit, yes, even the President or the First Lady of the United States are going to, generally speaking, for the most part, not always, but generally speaking, they're going to go along with the polite customs of where they're visiting. Others, when they come to the U.S., unless you happen to be Erdogan or his bodyguards, you tend to go with the customs that you would have here as well. I don't think it's very odd that Melania would forego the headscarf when she was not requested to wear one. If she had been, probably wouldn't have anyway, as a show of force against really a backwards ideology that seeks to enslave others. Whereas the Vatican, the Pope is basically a socialist. Culturally speaking, he's been certainly far more liberal than his predecessors. Therefore, really going with that simple veil, is it that big a thing? And to compare the two, to say, oh, well, Melania's obviously, it's a slap in the face of the Muslims. They didn't ask her to wear a headscarf. Well, if they had asked her to, maybe you'd have something to whine about or write a story about, but they never did. So they seem to think that Melania was just wonderful. Well, I can understand. Here's an astute individual. She speaks 5 fucking languages. She's obviously a cosmopolitan individual. It's like when the Democratic partisans, when they say, oh, Melania, the trophy wife, Melania, the, basically the hooker that Donald Trump married, you appear not to understand Melania Trump very well. When you can speak 5 languages, then maybe you can talk about her having a lack of intelligence. 99% of the time you don't. You probably aren't even bilingual, so why the hell are you complaining about it? You could never rise to that rank of wealth and prestige, and part of it is hers and their kids as well, and has nothing to do with anything that Donald Trump did. Ivanka has her own clothing line and her own like fragrances and jewelry and shit like that. Eric and Dawn, obviously they do their own business thing, and Melania manages her own affairs. She's obviously she's not constantly at Donald Trump's side anyway. It's almost an absentee first ladydom within the United States. She is still raising their young son, Barron Trump, and has decided not to relocate largely to D.C. They show up like sort of on the weekends and stuff, but largely it's an absentee first lady. Honestly, I think part of that is a shame, because here we have a well-spoken, a very astute first lady, and she's not very visible, honestly. I think we need to see more of Melania Trump. It would really counterbalance Trump's attitude, too. It would. She has more of that nurturing approach, the more perhaps cerebral approach, as opposed to Donald Trump. His strategy is related to chaos. You would get the yin and the yang, and I think the United States could use that at the moment. It'd be interesting to see, even have Barron Trump make a speech. He's probably very well spoken. People meme him as sort of a genius who never says anything because his mind is working too quickly. That may not be too far off. Who knows? And who cares about the headscarf stuff? It doesn't even matter. That's about all. Peace out.